How thin is the line between a protagonist and an antagonist? And what would it take for you to cross that imaginary line? In a previous video, I talked about Final Fantasy VIII's underlying theme of generational trauma and how our protagonists manage to remove themselves from the cycle of pain caused by their families. But I left somebody out of that video, and it's time I made amends. Because there's another character even more impacted by generational trauma, whose importance to the story is often overlooked. It's time to shine a light on Ellone, Final Fantasy VIII's loneliest character, and its almost villain. While traumatic childhoods are common in Final Fantasy VIII, I think it's fair to say that Ellone has the worst childhood of all. First, she's orphaned as a child at the start of the First Sorceress War. Then, she's kidnapped by soldiers working for Sorceress Adele, who imprison her in Esthar so that she can become Adele's successor. While there, she's experimented on by Dr. Odin, and when she's finally rescued and returned to Winhill, her only remaining caretaker dies. She's then placed in a foster home, separated from her only remaining family 5 years later, and sent to live in isolation for 12 years. So, yeah. Ellone has had it rough. One of the most interesting things about Ellone is how isolated she is. The game always sets her apart from other characters. Ellone is at least 5 years older than the other teenage characters, but not old enough to be one of the adults. She was raised with seeds, but never becomes one herself. She's one of the orphanage children, but whenever the orphanage gang is mentioned, we don't typically tend to include Ellone, because Ellone was always set apart and then separated from the other children. Most noticeably, her ability to junction sets her apart from other humans, but as she never actually becomes a sorceress, she's also set apart from the witches. But Ellone is also distanced from us, the player. From the beginning of the game, Ellone knows everything we don't, all of the information that we will only discover much later. In a way, she behaves sort of like an omniscient narrator. She's the only character who knows that Squall is Laguna's son. Long before we figure it out, Ellone already knows that Sorceress Edea is Edea Kramer, that Garden had previously been an orphanage, and that the purpose of the seeds is to fight the sorceress. Ellone always has an advantage over us, is always just out of reach until she wants us to find her. Am I making Ellone sound kind of ominous? I'm doing that on purpose, not because I think Ellone is secretly evil, but because I want you to notice the similarities between Ellone and Ultimecia. Like Ultimecia, Ellone possesses an incredible magical power. In each junctioning cutscene, Ellone is controlling the consciousness of at least 8 people at the same time. The seeds can only use 1 GF at a time, and even that causes a strain on their health, whereas Ellone can junction in her sleep. Ellone and Ultimecia are both powered by fear and loss. Ultimecia is afraid that the prophecy of her death will come true, and so, unwilling to accept her untimely demise, she uses Junction Machine Ellone to return to the past to try and change her fate. Ellone is afraid that she is responsible for the loss of her family, as Laguna was only in Esthar in the first place because he was looking for Ellone, thereby missing the birth of his son and the death of his wife. Unhappy and lonely after 12 years without her family, she decides to use Squall to return to the past and force Laguna to stay in Winhill. Both women, powered by their desperation, are willing to harm others to get what they want. Ultimecia kills, possesses, and manipulates anyone she can to achieve her goal. Ellone forces Squall and the other party members to join consciousness with Laguna and co., causing them great physical distress and confusion, especially considering it's being done against their will. To me, Ellone and Ultimecia are 2 branching paths of the same story. Each woman could have become the other if they had had different opportunities, different choices. Ellone learns just in time what Ultimecia learns far too late, that the past cannot be controlled or changed, and that those who try suffer for their folly. As a result, Ellone is saved from Ultimecia's eventual tragic fate. But I think Ellone also provides a sort of sympathetic foil for Ultimecia. It's easy to imagine that Ellone is who Ultimecia could have been, or perhaps was, before hundreds of years of isolation and anger. Or, alternatively, that Ultimecia is who Ellone could have become. Ellone's existence is an incredibly lonely and painful one. She lives on the fringes of everybody else's lives. Not quite a daughter, not quite a sister, not quite a seed or a human or a sorceress. She remembers everything, while those around her slowly forget. She was old enough to remember the horror of the First Sorceress War, and was shaped by it. She was taken from her home and her family over and over again. She was experimented on, ostracized, and forced into hiding for a power that she cannot control and that nobody else can understand. How much of that could you take before you went mad? The thing that saves Ellone in the end is the same thing that powers most people in Final Fantasy VIII: love. Ellone loves Squall, and eventually cannot bring herself to continue using him to junction when it upsets him so much. Ellone is also finally able to see how much Laguna and Rain loved her. Laguna would never have left Ellone in Esthar, no matter what she did to stop him. Laguna loved her too much not to try and save her, and I think Rain loved Ellone too much to stop him. Ellone's ending is a bittersweet one because she doesn't actually get the happy ending that she wants. Ellone tried to fix the past, but is forced to learn to appreciate what she has and make the best of the present. The last time we see her, she's back in Winhill, visiting Rain's grave with Laguna. While Squall sails ahead into the future, Ellone is tethered to the past life they briefly shared, and will never be able to move forward the way he has. In fact, I don't even think Ellone wants to. She has had so much time stolen from her that a happy ending for her might just mean getting to return to her childhood home. Squall might be the one who eventually breaks that generational cycle that I mentioned in my other video, but he could never have done that without Ellone. Ellone, who once knew another man who left behind the woman he loved and shattered 4 people's lives in the process. Ellone, who decides that no one else that she loves will live with regrets. Ellone, who tells Squall that he must rescue Rinoa, who sends him back in time and out to space, even if it means that she will never see him again. Ellone, who, by aiding Squall in saving Rinoa, ensures that the past will never haunt her little brother the way that it haunts her. I know we'd all like to be the Squall of the story, the hero who gets rid of all the childhood trauma and the generational burdens, but I think there's something special about the Ellones of the world, those who realize that they're in too deep to end the cycle themselves, but who give the generation below them the tools and the knowledge to do what they cannot, to finally break free. And I don't know, I just think there's something rather heroic about that.